This conference will now be recorded.
Hey everybody, it's Thursday at 2:30. It is time for our Monday through Thursday 2:30 podcast. This is a podcast where you will be exposed to the truth, the science about what actually happened in the opioid crisis. And I wanted to end the week with emphasis on hey guys, we're not wrong. Okay, we're not wrong. There are plenty. Oh my gosh, there are so many people who fervently believe that I'm a wingnut out in left field, and we're just wrong. Of course, everyone knows addiction is a brain disease. Of course, everyone knows that. And to challenge the concept that opioid addiction is not a brain disease, and to challenge the concept that the people caught up in the opioid crisis are not even drug addicts. Okay, if you were diagnosed with opioid addiction or opioid use disorder, you were misdiagnosed. And to challenge that, okay, and in challenging it, we're dragging up some stuff people don't want to hear. Okay, the father of modern science, Dr. Karl Popper, the type of science we practice today is called Popperian science. You test hypothesis. But the father of modern science was a contemporary of Sigmund Freud and also Einstein, and said flat out, psychiatry is a pseudoscience. It is not real science. And that's at the heart of exactly what happened in the opioid crisis. Okay, the psychiatrists got in charge. Okay, the psychiatrists, and they got in charge of a lot of the funding. NIDA, the National Institute of Drug Abuse, took over funding for drug research in 1992. I was actually reviewing that this morning because Dell and Chang published their studies in 1990, which should have been the end of the opioids. And so, lo and behold, the control of opioid research was given to NIDA, which in 1992 became a part of NIH, National Institute of Health. Otherwise, the opioid crisis could not have happened. The studies by Dell and Chang would have basically prevented it. But when NIDA took over the funding, and Dr. Alan Leshner was the first executive director of NIDA, he's the author of Addiction is a Brain Disease. He published his original paper in 1997. NIDA's only had two full-time executive directors since 1992, and that's Dr. Alan Leshner and Dr. Nora Volkow, who are basically the architects of this brain disease theory of addiction. So when we come out and say, hey, opioid addiction doesn't exist, opioid addiction is not real, what's happening to the people is not a brain disease, we're kicking sand in their face. We're throwing gasoline on their fire. And they've done a very good job of undermining me, undermining my credibility, undermining the credibility of Dr. Emery. That's what we looked at yesterday. The DEA got involved with fraud, and it's been very effective, and it's kept the truth out. But I wanted to end the week on a note of, hey guys, there's no chance we're wrong. Okay, our theory is pretty simple, pretty straightforward. We're saying that the opioids are causing genetic damage, which have been proven time and time again. Causes a type of genetic damage called methylation, specifically to an area of the DNA called the OPRM1 gene. I mean, that's just not even debatable. Even Google, even Google has that right now. Okay, there's no doubt that the opioids are causing genetic damage. And what we're saying is that genetic damage leads to a loss of control of the internal organs. And those of you who experience opioid withdrawal, that's exactly what it was. It was a loss of control of the organs. Hair stands on end, you start pouring sweat, lose control of your bowels, your heart rate's just flying along, your eyes dilate. You lost control of organs and organ systems. Your eyes water, your nose runs. By the way, the reason your eyes water and your nose runs, that's loss of control of the sleep system. When you sleep, your body keeps the eyes and the nose moist. That's why when you lose control of the sleep system, you get watery eyes and runny nose. This stuff isn't that hard. But the image you're looking at right there, okay, that's the one that does it for me. Okay, that's the one that does it for me. The image you're looking at right there, that's the one that I go back to. Okay, and very clearly you can see this is an epidemic of something. It didn't exist, and then it existed a lot. That's what an epidemic is. It didn't really exist, and it exists a lot. And what we're looking at here is an otherwise very rare, very obscure type of heart attack. It's specifically called Takotsubo cardiomyopathy. Takotsubo is Japanese word for oyster pot, and on echocardiogram, the silhouette of the heart looks like an oyster pot. So you get a fancy name, Takotsubo cardiomyopathy. Okay, and as you can see, beginning there in 2006, this thing just exploded. Now, if you look closer, it exploded in women, not so much in men. And if you look even closer, it exploded in postmenopausal women, women who've gone through menopause. Okay, this thing favored older women. Okay, and it's a very specific type of heart attack that only happens in the setting of adrenaline toxicity. So if we're wrong, which we're not, but if we were, how do you explain an epidemic of very rare heart attacks that only occur with adrenaline toxicity? And there it is, right there in front of you, in parallel with the opioid crisis. I mean, this is a clue of biblical proportions. This should have set off alarm bells at the CDC. Who? Oh, the CDC, asleep at the wheel. CDC, asleep at the wheel. Biggest waste of money, biggest waste of tax dollars. Okay, you got an epidemic of a type of heart attack that only happens with adrenaline toxicity, epinephrine toxicity, norepinephrine toxicity, dopamine toxicity, catecholamine toxicity, whatever you want to call it. And those guys at the CDC can't even figure it out. Okay, and it's in parallel to the opioid crisis, and they can't seem to figure it out. Okay, and I'm the wing nut. I'm the loose screw. Okay, I'm the one that's got this wrong. No, these experts are dangerous. Now I have the advantage. I went to school. I went to medical school, went through residency, and I worked side by side with people who went into psychiatry and went into the public health service. And I came to my own conclusions back in the 80s. When something real hit the door. I practiced emergency medicine for 20 years. Absolutely loved it. I couldn't spend enough time in the emergency department. It's the only place I wanted to be. I'd trade every shift. I didn't like catching babies. I wanted to be in the emergency department. I'd trade anything I could just to be there. Back in the day, what you were assigned to was determined by the beeper that you had, the pager that you carried. And I'd trade anything just to be in the emergency department. I just loved it. Still do. Although I retired, still do. And when something big would hit the door, there are those who would step forward and those who would step back. And that's what I saw with my own eyes. And some of the greatest doctors I've ever seen were the ones who would step forward with no hesitation, without a moment's hesitation. Those are the ones that in my book are the great ones. They are there to help people. And that's my own views on things. Well, that pretty much wraps us up for the week. We'll pick up on this next week. By the way, for those of you keeping count, I've really made a lot of progress in the book. Really made a lot of progress in the book. I promised myself that I would have this book finished in July, and I think I'm going to make that deadline. I wanted to do this. Now I'm talking to Alex, who he's there. I know he's listening. I want to do this book in a way that it's going to cost roughly $20. We're doing it to raise money to file the first mass tort lawsuits, because we're not going to get any credibility until we get the first mass tort lawsuits filed. That's obvious. They'll deny us as long as they can. They won't be able to deny us in court because our science is real. But we want to sell as many of these books as we can and raise money to do particularly the genetic work that it's going to require to file the mass tort lawsuits. And we want to make this so you can send a book, to someone who should get a copy. I got a big list of people who I think need copies of this book. So for $20, I guess it'd be $20 plus shipping and handling. It's amazing what postage costs these days. But for $20 plus shipping and handling, you can send a copy of the book to Dr. Nora Volkow, who I consider one of the architects of the opioid crisis, or Dr. Rigoberta Roca at the FDA. Okay. Oh, by the way, Dr. Nora Volkow is current executive director at NIDA. She's the one that has ignored the science and pushed forward for the brain disease, ignoring the science against it. And Dr. Rigoberta Roca is the one who approved the opioids without requiring genetic testing for methylation, and still hasn't. It's amazing that that's where we are today, but that's where we are. But anyway, you can send one to your congressman, send one to your senator, send one to your governor. Send one. You can send one to anybody you want to. Some of those addresses will already have plugged in. Okay, so if you want to send it to Dr. Nora Volkow at NIDA, you just pay the $20 plus shipping and handling, and we'll ship it to her. If you want to put a message in there, sure. Tell her what you think about the opioid crisis and what it did to your life. Sure. For some people, this is going to be therapeutic. Okay, the people who did this to you, you get to send them a book and tell them what you think. And Alex and I will we'll get that done. So we'll hold here for today. Everybody stay cool. It's awful hot out there. Have a great weekend, and we will see you guys on Monday. Bye-bye.